You can tell I'm taking this serious, so I've got my glasses on. Hi again everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've been forced inside the man cave today due to lovely British weather. Mainly because I hate the cold, so I'm just going to hibernate all winter now. It's quite a good thing because it's allowing me to do a video I wanted to do for quite a while now. I realise a lot of people who watch this channel might be quite new to the sport or might not actually know anything about bike trials at all. So I thought I'd do a quick video going through a bit of the history of the sport, a bit of an introduction, and tell you a bit about competitions, just give you a bit of an overview of what bike trials actually is. Got a bit of a confession to make. I've already made this video once, but clever old me forgot to turn the microphone on. So it's about half hour's worth of me just waving my hands around and no words actually coming out. So if at any point this seems a bit rushed or seem very annoyed, then that's probably why, because I've already said this all about 1,000 times already. Because I'm a very modern person, I'm going to be using printed off pictures to help illustrate my points. Mainly because I've got a brand new printer and it came with 3 cartridges. Biketrial started in the 70s and 80s, and the main 2 people behind it were Andre Cordina and Pedro P. So Andre Cordina ended up being a top motorcycle trials rider, and he was developing some bikes along with friends. They were kind of converting old BMXs, old mountain bikes and old trials frames, kind of bodging things together. Pedro P was a Montesa Trials factory motorcycle rider, and he developed an actual trials bike, mainly because his son, Ott P, wanted to learn how to ride bikes, learn to ride trials, and it's an easier way to get him into the sport. It's a lot cheaper, a lot less dangerous, and it kind of teaches those fundamental skills. And as I said, he was a Montesa factory trials rider, and with Montesa they developed the very first production trials bike, and that was the Montesa T15. And that kind of sparked off the whole sport really. So they started out by organising events, organising demonstrations all around Europe, touring around, just promoting the bikes, and they just invented a brand new sport. And if you're not familiar with motorcycle trials, for the older generation just think of Kickstart, and for the younger generation just think of the Trials Extreme video game. Eventually Pedro P would go on to create Monty bikes, which is still going on today. Here he is looking very dapper in his nice suit, and right there that's Ott P, his son, who was the first kind of superstar trials. He was 12-time world champion, and to me probably still the big megastar trials. Cool little story quickly. I remember at the World Championships years and years ago, Pedro P, you know, the icon, the big boss, was about to go on stage to make a big speech, and an English rider, I'm not going to say who, has slapped a massive Pashley TV series sticker on his back. So Pashley got some good free advertising that day. So bike trials started out as a way for young riders to get into the sport. Their parents didn't have to buy them a motorbike or take them out to a specific trials area. They could just go out on their push bike, which was a lot cheaper and a lot safer. It was also a way for the established riders to kind of fine-tune new skills and keep practicing. A lot of the top motorcycle riders have all come from a bike trials background or still use bike trials to train with. So you've got riders like Jordi Tavares, Albert Cavastani was a trials world champion, Kenichi Kiriyama, Fuji Gas, Gironi Fajardo, and kind of like the superstar of trials right now, Tony Bow. I was quite lucky to know Tony Bow when he was riding bike trials. So he rode bike trials and was world champion up to about the age of 13. He then disappeared. Then a few years later, suddenly came back and has dominated motorcycle trials ever since. So as the years went on, the bikes and the riding style got more developed, and it definitely became its own sport. Monty was still kind of top brand. There are a few other brands around, but Monty and Megamo were kind of 2 main ones. Throughout the 90s, 20-inch bikes, so small wheel bikes, were the main trials bikes. That's what all the top riders rode, and that's what all the companies put their development into. Some of the brands made 26-inch wheel bikes, so mountain bike size, but again, this wasn't kind of their main focus. It's always a bit of a side project. So a lot of times people want to ride a 26-inch bike, they would just convert a normal mountain bike. In the UK, 26-inch bikes were actually really popular because we've got quite a big mountain bike scene, and our top trials riders all rode 26-inch. So guys like Martin Ashton, Martin Halls, Chris Ackrig, their bikes were kind of developed from mountain bikes or were converted mountain bikes. So over the years, gradual developments were made, and in '98, quite a big change and something quite iconic happened. Monty released this, the X-Lite, and they kind of gave modern trials this kind of iconic look of having no seat. They were the first brand to come out with no seated bike, maybe because they realised we never use them, we never sit down, and they just get in the way, so they just got rid of it. It was around this time and in the early 2000s that other brands started to get involved in the sport, and the sport kind of boomed for quite a while. Along with all the new brands, actual 26-inch bikes started to get a lot more development, and a lot of brands started focusing on making trial-specific 26-inch bikes. And from that kind of point onwards, 26-inch bike popularity really grew, and I'd say now 26-inch bikes are by far the more popular bikes. People realise you can kind of do the same things as a 20-inch, but a lot of you can go a bit bigger on a 26 as well. Different brands kept the progression up, and we're at the point now where I think the most kind of modern, most developed bike is this, the Clean K1. So that is a fully carbon bike. Monty did make a carbon bike a few years ago, but it never really got into the mainstream that well. Clean were also the first company to make a full carbon 26-inch bike. A lot of brands have made carbon parts, but Clean are the first ones to kind of commit to a full carbon bike range, and I think a lot more brands are going to be starting to do that soon. In addition to competition bikes, over the last few years there's been a real surge in popularity of street bikes, 24-inch wheeled bikes, and that was brought on by Inspired when they released the 4Play. Now a street bike like that allows riders to kind of ride bikes in a slightly different way. With trials, it's quite a specific sport, and the bikes are only really good for competition riding and for trials riding. With the street bikes, you can kind of take them to a skate park, you can take them on the streets, and you can still ride trials in a competition on them. They also allow riders to come in from other sports. So if you've got kind of a fundamental mountain bike skill or a fundamental BMX skill, you can kind of take those, ride a street bike, do some few jumps, a few BMX tricks, and you're not going to be kind of left out with the trials crew, and you can gradually learn the trials skill while maintaining all your other tricks. And going on even further from that, some people are even riding brakeless trials now. So guys like Flip, Tom Mitchell and Vascola, they actually do street trials without any brakes. It's crazy. The whole point of a trials competition is to go through what we call sections. They're little courses made up of markers like this, telling you where to go, and you're meant to make it through these sections without putting your feet down or falling off. Now the different coloured markers kind of indicate what route you should be riding. In a club competition or like a lower level competition, it's usually done on ability. So white route usually the easiest, and it gradually goes up to yellow, which is the hardest route. In an international competition or a national competition, this is all done on age. So the younger guys will ride white, and again going all the way up to yellow class. In each of these sections, you're allowed up to 5 penalties, and usually that is by putting your feet down. So you put your feet down 1, 2, 3, 4 times, that's okay, but once you get to that 5th time, that's it, it's over, you've got to move on to the next section. Same thing as if you fall over, that's 5 points. If you run out of time, which is usually 2 minutes, or if you break any of the markers or snap any, that's 5, and you've got to move on to the next course. A competition will usually be made up of between 6 to 10 sections, and we'll usually have to do these for 2 or 3 laps. And the winner at the end of the day is the person with the least amount of penalties. So there are 2 main organising bodies in trials. The first one is the Biketrial International Union, or BIU for short. And these were the original trials organisations, started back in the 80s when sport was brand new. BIU events kind of cater for all ages and abilities. At the World Championships, you'll have like the 10s and unders classes riding with the elites. BIU competitions tend to be a bit more natural based, so they'll be held in forests, woods, in quarries, and the sections tend to be a bit more kind of technical. So they'll be using rocks and logs, muddy banks, and kind of challenge your kind of fine skills a bit more. The second organisation that run events is the UCI. Now you may recognise these guys because they also run a lot of other sports, so downhill, track cycling, cyclocross, and now BMX as well. UCI events got a lot more popular in the last few years, and they tend to run events using a lot more man-made obstacles, so things like pipes, pallets, skips and things like that. And a lot of time they're organised in town centres, so a lot more spectator friendly and a lot more kind of TV friendly, so people can get really close to the action. Due to the nature of the sections, it's all kind of big obstacles, they tend to favour a rider who prefers big power moves. So if you've got a lot of power and you're really good at gaps and really confident, then the UCI style is what you'll tend to go towards. Another slight difference between the two organisations is the penalty points. So in BIU, you get penalties for when you put your feet down, and that's about it. Whereas in UCI, you get penalties when you put your feet down, and also if anything other than your tyres touch an object. So say for example, you jump up a rock and you don't quite make it, you can put your pedal on the floor to kind of save yourself, but you'll get 1 penalty point for that. Whereas in BIU, you wouldn't be scored anything for that. Over the last couple of seasons as well, the UCI have changed some more rules. So in addition to penalty points, you actually get rewarded points the further you make into a section. So in the old days, if you fell off at the beginning of the section, or if you fell off at the end of the section, you'd get the same result. Whereas now, as you get points for going through the markers, you're going to get rewarded for the further you get. So you get 10 points for the first gate, 20, 30 and so on. So it makes things a bit more fairer and kind of reward you for getting further. So what I'll do, I'll post some links to a BIU competition and a UCI competition so you can see the difference. Again, it's the same sport, but the events are slightly different styles, and the riding styles are slightly different as well. Both really interesting and both good things to learn. So there we go, a little bit of a history of the sport and a bit of an introduction to competitions. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, I've already filmed this once today, so if it's a bit rough and ready, this edit, and a bit rushed, I'm sorry, but you know, I think I was going to have a mental breakdown if I had to do it again. So if you've got any questions or want to know anything more about sport, just hit subscribe, comment below, and I'll try and answer the best I can. See you all later.